Well, hello everybody. This is David Bianco. Thanks for joining me today. The discussion about record pressing plants has reared its ugly head again with the latest situation around Vinyl Me Please and their plant in Denver. I'm going to reflect on the history of these situations as they have happened in the past few years and realize there's a common thread that we all need to consider. That's coming up next on the Safe and Sound Texas Audio Excursion. Getting into vinyl years and years ago, I didn't think much about the actual record itself. It was an object and they had a way to play it and I listened to it. But when you really step back and look at a record and look what it can do, it's pretty dang amazing, right? I mean, we have this groove with vibrations in it, literally, that are just channels and troughs to music and to information that a stylus must go through at a speed. And heat is generated at that level, and all of this comes through this cantilever and these magnets and wires and preamps and amps and speakers to deliver beautiful sound to our ears. But getting that groove right, getting that record flat, getting that record within specs takes work. Now, having been in manufacturing all of my life, over 45 years, and granted none of it making records, I know that manufacturing is a lot tougher than most people think. It's the old story about it's like making sausage. You just don't want to see how it's done. And that's always been true in a lot of industries. But speaking specifically to vinyl here, I really enjoyed the fact that you could take an object like that and be able to reproduce sound so good that they rivaled, if not bettered, even all of this digital technology that has been known as the cream of the crop, the pièce de résistance. Nothing could beat it. And believe me, back in the 80s when that came out, that was what we were all sold. Now, obviously, the convenience of digital cannot be argued. I mean, whether it's a CD or it's streaming, it is very, very simple. Now, there's an old joke that says, I really enjoy vinyl if it wasn't for the inconvenience and the expense. And that's true to a large degree. There's no doubt about that. But the reality of this magic that happens on this vinyl is really something to behold. And so when I was able to visit a pressing plant, specifically it was the QRP, Quality Records Pressing Plant in Salinas, Kansas, with Chad Kassem, who's the CEO there. I mean, to me, that was like a kid in a candy store, obviously. But I also had quick recollections of what it takes to put processes together and to get to a level of quality that brings about the outcome that you're striving for. And I think we all know that Chad has been a very tough grader. He has his setup there on his two turntables, and he ABs these, and he goes back and wants recuts of the lacquers because of something that is lacking or something else he wants to hear. And then you have to take that and basically reproduce it. Well, as I discovered in getting to realize what it took to do this, I also recognize that there are a lot of people involved in the process and a lot of equipment. Now, there's the older equipment that has to be given the tender loving care to be able to continue to produce and reproduce because they are old workhorses, so to speak. And then there are some of the newer equipments that are more automated and have more of a computerized drive on them. And the point is they all end up doing the same basic thing in a different way. But as was shown in the video that Analog Productions had released on their QRP plant and what they did back in 2022, it hearkened to me the fact that these are processes that have to be managed properly and executed over and over again. Now, once you walk into a plant, it's already set up and running. But when you get into a situation of a greenfield or new operation, you've got to build things from the ground up. And that really is a lot more difficult than it might seem. And I think recent experiences have shown us that. We've seen that Mobile Fidelity worked to get its plant brought up in Oxnard, California. We see that Vinyl Me Please, or Vinyl Media Pressings now is the name of the plant, but same initials, VMP, has had its struggles in doing that. And they all have one thing in common. They were grossly late in getting ready. Now, some of that did have to do with regulations and what have you. But at the same time, I know that getting things right and getting it straight is often the real challenge that has to happen, regardless of what outside influences might be happening. Manufacturing is a process where everything really needs to go right for the execution to yield the product that you want. Now, there are highly automated processes. We know they're in automotive and we see them, and robotics and capabilities like that. And of course, those things happen. But there's always a secret sauce when it comes to making vinyl, because there are variables: time, temperature, environment. These are all really exacting variables because they affect the outcome of the vinyl very tremendously. Not like it would affect your car getting built in the same way, whereas the vinyl is much more sensitized to that. Just like when CDs are manufactured, you have to have super clean room and those kind of environments for that. So this is what it takes to get the job done. So I think it really teaches us one lesson, and that is it's hard to do. It's hard to get started, and it's hard to repeat. Now, in the case of both of these, it appears there were some financial issues to keep things going. Obviously, it's a big investment. There are regulatory things and legal things and governmental things that tend to slow things down. Even in any business, small businesses, getting a simple thing like a certificate of occupancy can be a huge red tape at the end of the day just to get opened. But these are the things that only come once you are ready to start producing. And that's where the difficulty begins. Now, layer on top of that a situation like VMPs, where you start to have basically a company creating another company, more or less, in order to service its needs. Well, it appears that maybe we weren't aware that that was the structure that was going to be coming. In other words, it to be separate. Whether it was intended to be that way all along, I don't know. I know that when the MoFi plant started up earlier here in 2024, and it was called Mobile Fidelity Pressing, we realized, yeah, that's a different entity, and I'm sure they have a different governance of some sort, and there are also fiduciary and legal reasons that one might do that for limitations of liability. Possibly VMP realized this as they got through the process, and as they separated, that is maybe where the discovery started to occur, in that things were not being directed in the way that they had thought they were going to be done. That will be worked out in court. I think the most important thing is that VMP, as in Vinyl Me Please, is securing alternative pressing resources and capabilities at Furnace and at RTI in order to continue bringing vinyl to the market, because that's what's important. That is the bread and butter of VMP. Now, unfortunately, VMP lost a lot of money the last few years and wasn't as profitable as expected, and the root cause of that may have had some place within what was going on with the pressing plant. Clearly, it was taking a lot longer to get going than was initially thought. I just read an article where someone was touring from a magazine in the spring of 2023 and being told they'd be pressing by summer of 2023. So, that's only really a few months. And here we are a year later, and I'm not so sure that they're pressing anything into production even as we speak. I know that they were certainly doing test pressings and doing some other test runs for the equipment earlier this year, of course, because that's how you validate the equipment and make sure that everything's running properly, get your processes set up and the controls necessary to maintain the quality of the product that you get to the customer. So VMP as an entity for the records and the content and the catalogs of what's going to come and what has come, we want to make sure that stays strong. And I think that their efforts to bring in their original CEO to right the ship or stabilize the ship in light of this is exactly the right thing to do. Now, what happens to the vinyl media pressing aspect of things and what was started there and what happens to maybe Gary Sahlstrom related to that, that's a bit up in the air right now. But let's keep our focus, and that is on the product. Just like we had the similar situation with Mobile Fidelity. I mean, theirs was a different kind of encroachment in terms of being fully transparent to the customer, but it really was one that affected sound potentially or our perception of the sound. In this case with VMP, it's really a business issue and it's really something that was going on internally. And we hope that what has happened will not in any way dilute their capability to deliver great products to the market, both in selection and in the actual pressings themselves. They certainly have taken a step forward to be upfront now and say, we hear you, we understand, we're going to do all we can. Please have confidence in us. And I think they deserve that. This is a rough time for the organization and for all the people that are working there still. We have to think about that because there's a lot of people that have put their heart and soul into what has been going on all these years outside of the record pressing plant, and we need to make sure that we respect the fact that we appreciate what they've been bringing to the market. So the bottom line is manufacturing is tough. It's difficult. And when we have situations, I mean, we saw here even with QRP, I mean, they brought in this whole Atlantic 75th series into the catalog, doing reissues, trying to do this all in the midst of the Steely Dan releases and some of those being delayed. There's a lot of balls in the air. There's a lot of things to juggle and to manage that have to go right. And so this is what we need to respect, is the fact that we have these people who are in fact trying to deliver us the best products that they can in light of the demands that they have on them in a working environment, meaning a pressing plant environment or a relationship with a third-party pressing plant and the people that make the jackets and all the things that have to come together. It is in fact quite an interesting market. It's a quite interesting situation. Even we were talking about the other day on a show about the graphics, getting the graphics right on the artwork for the jackets, and how sometimes that was, they didn't spend the extra money maybe at VMP to get a little sharper image than they could have. And yet we know at Acoustic Sounds Analog Productions, they have someone dedicated to that role, and they really work hard to make that as pristine as is possible. And that takes a certain amount of effort and cost to do it right. So I hope we all can gain a little perspective from this learning and realize that even though mistakes can be made, they can be righted. We need to support this industry and recognize that we have something that we should very much be glad of, because there was a time and a day where we thought all this was dead. And so to all of you out there who dedicate time in their careers toward bringing vinyl to us, our hats off to you, and thank you very much. So for now, that's all I have. Thanks for subscribing. If you would, please, by pressing on the bell, and a like or thumbs up is appreciated, as are any comments you might have. So until next time, thanks for joining me at the Safe and Sound Texas Audio Excursion. Take care, everybody.